Hi, everyone, and welcome to this panel, which is the role of mentoring during COVID. This is another collaboration between Keychange and She.grows after the We.grow program, which is a mentorship program that was put on between these two organizations really at the start of all of the lockdowns last year. And we're joined by the panel today, which is Anais, Kimortal, and Chi-Chi. And I think it's best if they all introduce themselves. So I'll start with Chi-Chi. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Harriet. Hi, everyone. My name is Chi-Chi Makoto. I'm a senior sync executive at Sony ATV based in London. I'm a previous she.grows, she.grows mentee. And since then, I've kind of been involved in helping the mentees kind of appreciate what they need to give to get back out of the scheme itself. And I'm currently a mentor as well. That's me.
Thanks, Chi-Chi. And next, Anais.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anais. I'm a French and Senegalese artist based here in London. I got the opportunity to be a part of She.grows through Keychange and spent this lockdown being a part of the mentor-mentee partnership with Kimortal. And yeah, that's me.
And over to you, Kimortal.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kimortal. I'm a Filipinx artist based here in Vancouver, BC, Canada. And I go by they, them. And I'm a very proud visual artist and musician. And I was so stoked to be a part of this Keychange She.grows collab mentorship with Anais. I learned so much, and I'm stoked to be here.
And thank you for joining us so early where you are. Yeah. We're so lucky to have you. And I'm Harriet, so I'm on the board for the She.grows UK, as well as managing director at Management Aid Music Publishing. And also, I was a Keychange innovator in 2018, and I've loved being a part of the program. Ever since then, we used to have some amazing meetups all around the world. So desperately missing those and wishing everyone part of all the Keychange programs the best in these strange times. So I thought I'd just highlight to kick us off what mentoring is in the context of She.grows and Keychange, because it's really very different for everybody, but it was quite important for all of us to distinguish what mentoring means to us. So we distinguished it as a one-to-one relationship set over a period of time. So it was a number of months for Keychange and She.grows, We.grow participants, in which someone, usually someone we would classify with more confidence and or experience, aka the mentor, provides support, guidance and practical help for a less experienced or even less confident person, aka a mentee. However, on We.grow with Keychange, it was really interesting because we had quite a few peer-to-peer mentorship groups, which meant that people were at the same level of experience, and that was very much to provide a kind of encouragement or share experiences and resources and provide support during this COVID time. It's definitely a voluntary relationship. We did ask all of the participants for this program to volunteer their time. And, you know, it's very much led by that sort of want and will to be involved. That's really important. It's definitely a two-way process, and we'll be talking to the pairs here today about that, how much you can learn being a mentor, but obviously being a mentee, you're expected to learn, but it's definitely a two-way street, which is just wonderful. And it's a way of enabling a mentee, if it's that sort of relationship or if it's peer-to-peer, to gain skills, knowledge and confidence from your partner. So those are the kind of the key things you're looking for within a mentorship partnership, as well as confidential, impartial and completely non-judgmental guidance and support. So those things are really, really important. So I hope that kind of correlates with what you've all experienced. Chi-Chi, could you just give us a little bit of background as to the programs that you've been part of before She.grows mentorship?
So the first program I was part of was actually the pilot scheme of She.grows. I think that was back in 2017 or 8. I think it's 17 actually now.
Yeah, we picked up then, yeah.
Oh my God, so much has happened since then. So I was at a place where I was in an internship. I wanted to stay on, and they were unable to keep me on just due to financial reasons at the time. So I was really, as everyone kind of goes through, I was quite stressed about that. I was lucky enough to be paired with Sharon Dean, who's the former head of the PRS, as my mentor, and our relationship kind of just built from there. We followed kind of the set pattern of what you're supposed to do, but we kind of have extended it and evolved since then. So through the relationship, I was able to, meet up with her and also do virtual catch-ups. Obviously pre-COVID anyway, we just happened to do virtual catch-ups, set goals, and then obviously achieve them. It enabled me to get the role that I'm in right now, and learn about negotiating salaries and building my confidence in that type of thing. Since then, I've been part of obviously helping with the pairing up of people, and the partnerships, which credit to Harriet and the team and the Keychange. It is a big job. It takes a lot of time and effort to match people as perfectly as they have done, and as I was part of it as well. So that's generally been my experience of she.grows or the mentorship scheme.
Thanks, Chi-Chi. And thanks to Chi-Chi as well for doing it. She did a training session for the mentees as part of Keychange We Grow. And that was brilliant. That was all the way back in April, May, that strange time. So I'll start with you, Anais. If you could tell us a little bit about your experience on this particular mentorship journey, and just to start off, really, have you had a mentor before?
So I've never quite had a mentor in this way, or in a way that was structured, or that we met regularly, or anything like that. I've had people in my life that kind of fulfilled that role, that I got to ask questions to and stuff like that. But when I actually originally decided to be a part of she.grows, I didn't know if I would be a mentor or a mentee. And secretly, I wanted to be a mentee, because I was like, I don't necessarily feel like I'm the most confident person, or like that my experience is that valuable. But then I found that I was going to be a mentor. It was a surprise, but it was also really exciting, because I know that it's really about a two-way relationship. And I knew that there would be so much that I would learn from my partner as well. And that it would also encourage me to step up to my own potential, So from that perspective, I was embracing this opportunity, even though it was unexpected. And yeah, the experience of working and getting to know Kim and building together was just extremely fulfilling for me. I really enjoyed it. I think that we had a really great pairing. So thank you to whoever decided to pair us together. Honestly, it was really a joy. And I guess maybe later we'll get into a bit more of like what our dynamic was like. But I just think so much of it was just about, or at least at the beginning, it was just about getting to know each other and trying to understand like what was really going on, and what their needs were, and how I could best assist, or like what my role was in that, because there was a lot of encouragement as to not, give people solutions, but like help them find their own truth and their own road. And so yeah, it was really interesting navigating that.
Amazing. And Kim, could you share a little bit about your experience on this program too, as well as whether you've had a mentor before?
Yeah. So I was like, basically anything Keychange has been offering, I've been stoked about. And I've never had a consistent mentorship sort of program in the past. The closest I've had to it was maybe 5 to 7 years ago. I was in a 2-week mentorship, which was not as consistent, and I guess the impact wasn't felt as much. That was a poetry mentorship. But yeah, with Keychange, I was so excited to be paired with Anais, because I really feel that she's like super accomplished and really up there to me, and was just so positive. And I actually wanted a mentor like for a very long time. And I find that it's actually very difficult to find mentors within the music realm. It's a lot harder than it should be. And I don't know why. I wish there were more programs, like even locally. And it's funny that it hasn't happened in my life until now. But yeah, I found that it was really helpful, especially during COVID, because I think our pairing happened in the beginning of COVID. And
Right at the
that's
beginning.
when a lot of artists and musicians were like, oh, what's happening? Right. So this was a really grounding force. And especially when the industry is changing, it's such a beautiful thing to be able to like focus on this thing of our careers and to speak intentionally about it. So yeah, it was very motivating.
That's so good to hear. I do have to say, it's just interesting hearing both of you speak about how you approach these roles in this program. That when not just on this Keychange program, but when we've been doing pairing people up before on every program, and including this one, you often ask people, would you like, we've had programs people have applied as a mentor and a mentee, and I guess that's a bit more direct as to what exactly their role will be. And I think on this one, we said, you're part of Keychange and you can apply, would you like to be a mentor or mentee or either? And it's so interesting to see the accomplishment and the level and the confidence of the people on these programs, yet everybody does want a mentor. And I think it's quite hard for people to see that inside themselves, that they also have some value to give. I think, some people get there at a certain level, but it's it's and it's so such a shame that, like, Anais, that you would doubt that you would have that knowledge and experience to share. And I think it was, it's so obvious to other people that you do. And I think that's just, it's really interesting. And I think hopefully the more and more mentorship happens, the more that confidence can be built and people can see that worth within themselves, really. So yeah, it kind of happens on every application process, and it's hopefully it will start to change. So just a reminder for everybody watching, please do feel free to post questions or comments, and we'll be getting to questions at the end. So feel free to ask whatever you like to the panel. So for both of you, talk us through practically how this worked within COVID times, because it really did kick off right at the beginning of all of this, and we were going to be doing this scheme virtually, so it was kind of just worked really well. It just meant that, obviously it was just going to be held for that and not meeting a person. So when did you meet up, and what did those sessions look like?
Well, I think maybe the first couple of sessions, or at least the first one, it was just me trying to get an understanding of Kim and what they value, what's important to them, what they're going through, what their ambitions are, where they feel that maybe they want to see some change or some growth. Just asking a lot of questions, honestly, just picking their minds and their brain as much as possible. And I think I was trying to be very transparent with my own experience, because I feel like I've made so many, I don't want to call them mistakes, because I've been able to really grow from them, and they've been extremely important moments in my life and in my career, because they've informed who I am now. But I've had certain experiences that I just don't want anyone else to go through, so I just was trying to give them as much insight as possible, and just share my experience, really, is what I was trying to do really at the beginning. And we were trying to meet at least maybe once or twice a month. I don't really remember how well we achieved, but I feel like it was pretty consistent for a while. But it was between once or twice a month, and just speaking for an hour or so. And I don't know, do you want to pick up on that, and then maybe I'll bounce back off of you, Kim?
Yeah, I remember I just really appreciated like having conversations with you about music, because another thing about my practice is that I'm many things, and like I do visual art, I've done like theater, I've done music, and like Anais really helped me see that almost in myself. And also with all these questions asked, I feel like it allowed me a space to really hone down like who I am, and like hear myself say it out, like, this is what I value. And I think it was in the first session where Anais was like, what are your career aspirations? Do you have a team? What inspires you? Who inspires you? Write these down. And so, like, having these notes in front of me and having Anais be like, okay, let's push it further, like, really helped me, I guess, like, understand myself a lot more as an artist. And I think one thing with me is sometimes I notice actually in conversations how much I beat around the bush. Is that a saying in the UK?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh man, I have so much to work on. So yeah, I really appreciated that. And I learned a lot from Anais's stories about being a musician and having toured, and learning from, like, her, how she's written songs and how she's worked with others within the industry. And I think I learn a lot through stories and through, like, real people, as opposed to, like, reading a book about the music industry, like, that's also something that I haven't really dived into, besides, like, networking meetings that last for an hour locally.
Right.
So yeah, it was something that I really needed. I feel like I was thinking about all the musicians in my life too that don't have mentors, and especially mentors that they can relate to or that they're inspired by, so yeah.
I think also.
Sorry, Annie, you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I feel like the initial sessions were really about trying to identify or trying to get some clarity, just because there's usually so much going on in, like, an individual's life, and in what they're trying to accomplish. There can be just, like, a lot of clouds, and you kind of have to get to the root of, what someone really wants for themselves, and then you start to see, like, what pieces are missing. And then it's really like a work of introspection, I would say, because it's I loved when they were like, yeah, don't give people solutions. At the end of the day, I don't know what's best for Kim, and so of course there's that time of us getting to know each other, but at the end of the day, I'm not in their life like that. So people it's so good to be able to have someone to just speak to out loud, someone who's going to, like, question and pick up on little subtle things you might say that maybe they were just kind of things that you say that you kind of throw them away, but they actually reveal a lot about maybe some insecurities or some doubts or some desires you might have, right? And so, like, just being able to pick out those things so that person can see who they are, and then they can use that to come up with solutions for themselves that will transcend the relationship of the mentorship, that can they can then apply that later, and Absolutely. For me, like, I learned from that as well. I was learning so much from Kim. I was so inspired because they are so multi-talented and there's so much that they can do. And then it's like, okay, how do we navigate this? How do we organize ourselves so that we can have a clear picture of, like, all of the gifts and all of the access and all the resources that are here in front of us, and then how do we manifest them and, like, use them to move us forward,
Absolutely. And did you feel like there was kind of an arc to your relationship? Obviously you had a lot of the exploration at the beginning, and did it feel like you got there with a lot of those?
Sorry, exactly. I feel like at the beginning there was the exploration, the asking questions, finally just getting to the clarity. And once we got to the clarity, it was, okay, how do we now set some goals? How do we work towards them, kind of checking in regularly about what progress has been made, but also leaving room for the fact that things might change. And they're like, so many times Kim would say, oh, I thought I wanted to do this, but now actually this is how I want to move forward. And even getting really specific too about, timelines, and saying, okay, I want to release something by this time. Okay, what would need to be achieved in order for this to come out in November or whatever, and then realizing there's going to be movement, there's going to be shifts. and I feel so like that was like mostly the second part of the relationship. So after the exploration, it was like setting goals, kind of checking in regularly and saying, okay, how do we adjust now? You know, what didn't work, what worked? And also I really wanted to ask him, like, what works in this relationship? Like, in which way is this serving you and in which way is this not serving you? And trying to put transparency at the root of our relationship so that they can say, well, you know, like the story thing, there was a time where they said, it really helps me when you tell me what you've been through and when you give me examples of how you've experienced something, you know? So we're not speaking in like a vague language, but it's like very concrete, experiential goodness, you know, that then we can pick apart and assess.
And so how did COVID impact that too? Because surely everything was changing all the time. Was like more of a need for that support between the two of you?
Okay, so what happened for me during COVID, just taking a step back and looking at how my arts has changed, is like I actually did a lot more visual art. And what I appreciated about Anais is that like she saw that and she was like, okay, that's valid, right? Because like, I don't know, I think like I felt like in the music industry, I don't fit in because I'm so many things. And so it's been but then again, Anais was like, no, there's, you know, I think you brought up like an example of like Dali or something, or like some painter. And you were like, just look at this part of his career. He was doing this. And then in this part of his career, he was doing something else. Right. And then I was like, oh yeah, I can approach my practice in a very different way and in a way that I define for myself. And so that opened up, that gave me permission in a way, like for me to give myself permission to like do the thing. And so I got a little more clarity on one of my like a music video that I actually ended up pursuing. And so even though we were like, let's try to do this by November, I finished the project in November, but I'm going to release it at some point later. And so that was a concrete goal for me. And so in terms of the arc, I feel like I really felt it was like, who are you? What are you doing? Where do you see yourself heading? And then like going like this, you know, like really like focusing the goals.
Rather than it just being like a movement. That's a nice diagram there.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's so insightful into how both of you worked. Chi, I wanted to just pick up with you. Could you maybe, again, talking about kind of arc, briefly go over how mentorship has generally affected that sort of direction of your career, but also if you've had any of that impact during this COVID time? I know that you mentor as well for other people.
Yes, I would say, you know, coming from what you both have said, well, Anais and Kim have both said, it's kind of just about clarity and accountability on both sides. I think a lot of the time we focus on ourselves if we're the mentee and what we want to get out of it, and the focus is all on, you know, how can we develop? But when you're a mentor and you're supporting this person and you're trying to help them with their goals, it also gives you time to reflect on yourself and how maybe you might be a little bit further along, you might be a little bit set in your ways of how you do things or comfortable in your role or your business. And it kind of gives you an opportunity to really look at it and kind of shake it up. So yeah, I think the clarity part, definitely, like Kim was saying, you know, just funneling the goals down, and then accountability, having to hold yourself to account and, you know, be scheduled and have these meetings regularly. That definitely helps. For me, in terms of the arc, I started off in super junior with my mentoring relationship with Sharon Dean, and obviously she had so much to give, like 20 years worth of, you know, experience and knowledge. But as time has gone on, we've been able to not only work just towards my goals, we also work towards hers, because now she manages artists or a specific artist, and I work in sync. So we're able to, you know, share that on both sides.
Amazing.
I think yeah, it's really good. to bring it into current times of COVID, I think, and lockdown, that's definitely what it's about as well. Everything's constantly shifting, so we all have to be quite realistic and accepting of what's going on, and tailor our goals kind of in line with that.
Definitely, it's really interesting. Actually, something all of you have said, and we'll come back to tips for people later on. But we shared some tips on Keychange, and She Said So yesterday. Check them out. There's 5 tips for mentorship, and the third one was know yourself. And it sounds like that's sort of quite similar to what everybody here is saying, in that it really helps to do that bit of backroom prep before you come into it, and it's almost the hardest thing to do, is getting to know your own goals, and it's really having to kind of map them out, and sometimes it's just about talking to someone else about them, and then they become so much more apparent to you yourself.
Definitely, Harriet, and I would add in there as well, the use of peer-to-peer mentoring, specifically at this time with you guys see yourself, Anais and Kim see themselves as a pairing, like a mentor-mentee, but it has kind of evolved into that peer-to-peer mentorship.
Exactly.
So I think that definitely comes into it in these times specifically.
Yeah, I think in the Keychange We Grow, it was almost split down the middle. There's 2 mentor-mentee, and then the peer-to-peer groups. And another mentorship program I did for composers last year was the same. And actually, just sometimes even the mentor to mentee relationships do evolve into that, and you just manage to feed both ways. So it's really cool when, and important that mentors also be open-minded as to what they can learn too. So I guess my next question for all of you is, what would you say is the biggest kind of shift in your career before and after mentoring? Let's start with Kim Mortal.
Okay. Well, the biggest shift. So I don't know if you remember, Anais, but I still remember this one mentorship meeting, and I was really emotional. And we were talking about insecurities. And I just remember Anais saying, like, I don't know, I think it was a story, but it was like, turn around and look at your insecurities or those ghosts in the face and talk back to them. And that's like stayed with me for a very long time.
Wow.
And yeah. And yeah, it's just like so much of this music is career, right? But so much of it is like, it's like our sacred space. It's like it's like our battlefields. And like, it's so important for us to be doing that work on ourselves, because that's where things are stirred, and that's that's how the music and the art flows. And so yeah, that was like a really important session for me. And I think like within my music and my art currently, where I'm at now, is within the past few months, I feel like I've been doing a lot more like spiritual work. And I feel like COVID is kind of like pushing us to make us do that. It's kind of inevitable. We're facing ourselves and we're facing these demons. And that's been helping me actually in my music, like get through things that were blockages for myself, and trying to get myself unstuck. And so how I'm working through that in my art is coming through in my music. And I'm also finding this way to bring my art and my music together, so there's like a harmony. And yeah, I feel like Anais really helped me just like sort through that, and like, also she's doing that as well, and so that's a big teacher to me as well.
Yeah. And were you aware of those blockages before you came into this, or was it something that they kind of enlightened by this experience?
I've definitely been aware of this my blockages for a while. Yeah.
Mm.
And so, yeah, this mentorship meant a lot to me because, you know, like you have friends that are, you know, not in music or in music, but it's not an intentional relationship. And even within the label that I'm in, the label manager is not always there, right? So it's like having that, again, that intentionality of why we come together, why we talk through things, and like that was so helpful. I hope there's mentorships. There's a lot more mentorships in the future for musicians, and that it's more easily accessible.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds completely crucial.
Totally.
Anais, did you have any similar experience?
The question was like how are
was there a shift in your career generally, kind of before or after? Maybe not even just this experience, but any other experience of mentorship you've had before, formal or informal?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's really nice to have a space, like a sacred space where we can get together and there's no pressure to, it's exactly what Kim was saying, having that intention. So there's no shame around bringing up certain things and asking questions. And you know that the person is not there to judge you. They're just there to hear, like not just to listen. Like always, it's like therapy, but they understand the purpose and they understand what we're moving together towards a goal, you know. And so for me, I feel like, yeah, what you were kind of bringing up, Kim, about like kind of turning around and like facing your fears is like the way I look at them. Like I feel like when you don't acknowledge these shadows, they just grow larger and larger and they take up more space. But then when you turn around, and I always use this analogy, but please don't laugh at me. It's the Mushu, you know, from Mulan.
Yeah, so
you know, you turn around and it's like this little thing, and once you've like kind of dealt with that, it doesn't have to dominate your life anymore, you know. And so much of what Kim was saying, like with COVID, has really brought a time for introspection, and introspection naturally like leads you to confronting, like, you know, your fears, your demons, all these things, and being able to kind of face them forward and realizing that as artists, we are constantly like creating and manifesting opportunities for ourselves. So the sorts of beliefs that we have about ourselves and the way that we perceive ourselves plays a huge role as to how our career moves forward. Because if you undervalue yourself, then, you know, you'll start maybe signing the wrong deals and working with the wrong people, you know. So like when people say that, you know, you have to know yourself, which I think is an extremely difficult task. Like, I don't think it's easy. I think we're constantly getting to know ourselves, right? Like, it's very profound work, but like, it's nice to be able to speak to someone and figure out how you can tap into your own, like, I don't know how to explain it, but basically like face a lot of your insecurities, your fears, change the sort of beliefs you have about yourself so that you can like shift and you can shape the sorts of opportunities that are coming your way, you know. And so I think that there's like a lot of power in that. And so for me, that our relationship taught me that, because as I'm pointing these things out in Kim, I'm also realizing that within myself too, you know. Oh wow, like here are all the blind spots I have, here are the things I'm neglecting, here are the relationships that I could nurture a bit more, here are the thoughts that I've been engaging with that actually aren't serving me and are making my career more difficult, you know. So it's very much reflective work in a way. So yeah, and I would say that, yeah, my career has changed a lot because I feel a lot more empowered now than I did then, you know. And I feel like I do have things to offer in the world, not just like as a mentor or a mentee, but as an artist, you know. And I felt like I've always known that I had purpose in what I do. I've always been very intentional about the work that I do, but I didn't really recognize it. And even to see that someone that I really respect, that I think is incredibly talented, can value that in me was like, it was very fulfilling, you know. It really helped me to like see myself as well. So I'm really grateful for that.
That's such incredibly powerful imagery about facing those kind of demons. And it's going to be so interesting to see, I guess, more generally, as to if we've had this introspective time for almost an entire year now, what impact that's going to have generally on people and how they know themselves and how we see ourselves, but also on art, and how that is then reflected in art, music, and everything
Absolutely.
else. It's going to be a really interesting time.
Yeah, it's going to be so exciting to see what people create, you know?
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Chi, have you had any of that? I guess it's sort of a more general question about this time too, any more of that introspection? And was that a big part of your relationship with mentorship as a mentee, but also as a mentor, about knowing yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I first, kind of had a professional mentor, it was at a time when I really needed it. And from that, I've been able to reflect on myself, and again, goes back to what Anais was saying earlier, to see what I can actually give as a mentor. And I think that's across the board. A lot of people are starting to realize that, because you are looking at yourself, and it's an easy time to be critical on ourselves, because maybe as artists we're not performing live, or there's so much that you're unable to do. But you can kind of try and see the positives of what you can do and what you are doing, and how you can impact and benefit others. So that's been really a big shift for me. Probably the biggest shift from what I've gotten out of mentoring altogether over the past sort of 5 years has been that, being able to see what in myself I can offer from what I've learned from mentors that I've had.
Right, definitely. And on a practical level for all of you, for Kim and Anais, how did you find it easiest to keep in touch? Were you doing Zooms, or did you also have a more casual, like, WhatsApp relationship? Like, how did you generally?
It was on Zoom, and we at one point we were like, okay, let's do this date next week or 2 weeks from now. And then we started changing that to like, okay, we'll check in on the week of, which was great, because things changed with schedules. And I also, Anais also invited me to like hit them up if I needed a sounding board when it came to questions around like my team, because during COVID I was questioning if I should make links with like a local music industry thing here and there. And at one point I remember being like, hey, can I talk to you? I just had a conversation with this music industry person. I'd like to hear what you think about this, and this is how it went. That was really helpful. That was in my car on my phone.
So that was a bit more spontaneous than your planned sessions?
Yeah. And also that was kind of urgent at the time too, because it was like my first time dealing with a music industry person on that level. And besides like my partner and also just like talking to some people that were also in the label. It was really helpful to hear from Anais, because I almost need that like outside eye, and it's it was really helpful, because Anais has a lot more experience than me with, being transparent, and especially going for what you want. Because I think as much as I don't like to admit it, I'm shy when it comes to like pushing for what I want and like defining that for myself, and being transparent with other people on how I want to direct my career. And so a lot of the times she was like she really demonstrated assertiveness and that strength, and made it like a tangible thing, like it's possible, and like another thing I forgot to mention is another thing that was really helpful about this mentorship is like making my goals concrete, and actually not like taking them out of like dream phase, and like like what that means is like grants, you know, like writing letters, you know, like writing down budgets, how much things are, you know, like things like that, which are really difficult for me, like the admin
practical
stuff.
advice. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And Anais, as a mentor, did you also, how did you find the kind of virtual experience? Was it, because I suppose it's kind of tricky, I think, for mentors, and we really go through this in these the handbooks that we usually provide when we're doing a program, which is sort of about, I guess, as a mentor, protecting your time and your knowledge and your advice. But it sounds like the both of you had such a kind of free form but really constructive relationship. And how was that virtual experience for you? Did you kind of enjoy the spontaneity as well?
I liked it. I mean, for the most part, it was like pretty structured. Like there was just a couple of moments where, you know, Kim would say, "Oh, can we speak about this?" But I personally, especially at the beginning of lockdown, up until very recently, I had a lot more time. So, and the fact that it's virtual also makes it a bit easier because, you know, if we had to like get out of our house and meet somewhere, we lose a lot of time. So it's a bit easier to communicate in this way. And I was definitely open to having more communication, like things like WhatsApp. But I know it obviously depends on, you know, your relationship with your mentee and if you have the capacity to give more. You know, I think it's important to be able to be honest about how much you can give and how much you can share. As you were saying, like protecting your time and your energy as well. I personally felt like really open and I enjoyed it, so I didn't really mind. Like I feel like I could have done more, you know.
I feel like I also say that as like, you know, when you're organizing a program like this, you want to be really protective of people's time and energy and you know, you have to set parameters. But I also have to say, I feel like we've never really had problems or complaints or anything with people giving too much. I think the collaboration in this space is always, you know, because there's such a need for it. People have been so open with their time and their experience. And I actually was a mentor, like in the second lockdown we had here in the UK, and it was such a fantastic experience. My mentee was in Guadalajara in Mexico, and I really know, to be honest, nothing about the Mexican music industry, but I was mentoring her about promotion and digital aspects. So I suppose that was where my experience was relevant. And I really enjoyed it was like all throughout the week of FinPro, and we had really like regimented times, and having some structure and routine in lockdown was amazing. And I just loved it. And then we had like a very kind of structured follow-up, and we have another one in February that I'm really looking forward to sort of, because then I can really see the change and the movement in her, and that was such a good experience. So I want to ask all of you a question more about, I suppose, the you know, the core value and reason behind both Keychange and She Said So is reaching greater equality right across the music industry. And what would the three of you say would kind of be the role of mentorship in that, and how can mentorship sort of shape shift the music industry into, let's be honest, a better place?
I feel like it's incredibly important because there's just a lack of transparency in the music industry. I personally have felt like very often some people or businesses, industries like strive off of like exploitation and people being kept in the dark and not really understanding what they how they should really be treated. You know, like a lot of things that are not okay are normalized. And so I feel like when people share their experiences with one another, and when we share the tools that we have, and when we even share our relationships, like really moving into a very generous space with our information and our resources, we can really empower one another, and we can shift the way that things are, instead of being. So yeah, I really feel like it's incredibly important. And for me, after what I had been through, it became really important to share my story with people, so that they don't have to go through that, and that they know that they can ask for more. You know, you can ask to be treated differently, that you don't have to accept the standard or whatever, you know. So I think it's really important. And also Kim earlier mentioned something about assertiveness and asking for what you want and what you need. And I feel that even if we don't have a structure, even if we don't have, let's say, a proper mentor, there are people all around us, and it's important not to be afraid to reach out. Like, I know if people message me all the time, like, obviously I'm not like a huge artist, but like they message me and they're like, oh, can you please give me some advice on this? Or like, I'm trying to do a career and like, blah, blah, you know, they ask me questions, and when I can, I answer and I give them a response. And so if we can learn to not be afraid to reach out to the other people, and yeah, I feel like there needs to be like a shift within not like keeping our information just to ourselves, you know, and really being generous with that. And yeah. I'll come back later. But
sharing experience and resource and everything. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's how we can really make change, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I really feel like that we as artists have the power to change the culture of the music industry through that generosity.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an antithesis to like a lot of what the industry stands for. And it's like, we don't need gatekeepers. We're already we're the ones creating the work, you know, like we're the ones having like an emotional, spiritual influence on our spheres. And so it's like putting the power in our hands as artists to like lead our own and to like pull each other up together. I think that's something that's happening. I also see that happening in beautiful ways. And it's also happening with like the youth as well, like generations that are younger. It's like we can show them like what this culture can be. And I think that is so essential. And another thing too is like humanizing the music industry and like the real stories, the real people behind it. And that's something that mentorship offered me, is like, Anais is a real person. I'm a real person. We're all like real people. And we're deeply affected by these stories that have changed the course of our careers and how we interact with people. And so it's almost like it's essential for us to practice that care for other people as well, because I feel like sometimes you can feel like you're disposable in this. And so like knowing as well that there's someone out there that's like, I believe in you, and like this is what you're doing amazing, you know, like, and seeing that in yourself as well is like it's so important. There should be more of it.
Definitely. And I think Keychange is special in that way, in that it's for artists and what they call innovators, so the kind of industry side of things. And I think that cross-pollination of, it's not just about knowledge, but actually the experience, exactly as you're saying, Kim. You know, if people working in the industry can be more aware of, I guess, even the humanization of artists, which is mad that we even have to think that or want for that, but if that can be more realized and shared, then the industry is more naturally going to be, hopefully, a kinder place. And with the interests of artists at heart. Yeah, Chi-Chi, what would you say on how mentorship can help achieve that greater equality in the industry?
For me, it just comes down to visibility and reflection. So in mentorship pairings, if you have somebody who you see yourself in, that kind of thing, for me, it helps to have, you know, a person of color, or, you know, something, anything like that. Sharon Dean happened to be a gay woman, and that really, you know, that resonated with me. So we were able to kind of see things from that perspective as well. And to be honest, pretty much everyone, this is from more of an industry perspective than obviously you guys as artists, but pretty much everyone I know who is, you know, at the similar level to me, working in the music industry at the moment, that is of color, is working in some sort of mentoring relationship or mentorship scheme. Most of the women that I know, women with an X obviously, are involved in that. So I think visibility and reflection can only drive us towards that change.
Amazing, agreed. I just want to say to everyone watching, please do now post all your questions in the comments, because we're going to be coming to them very soon, and we have some time to answer those now. What would, for the three of you, be your top tip or recommendation for any mentees or mentors?
I would say, sorry guys, just jumping straight in.
No, it's good. I'm glad you did.
My first tip would be you give what you get. So put in as much effort as you can into this relationship in order to take away as much as you can. Like, if you just look at this pairing, they're across the world from each other, and that you can just see the bond that they have and how much they've gained from it. So I think giving as much as you can to the relationship, you can take it away. And then an additional thing, just as a little extra, is obviously where we're in lockdown in most parts of, you know, the world, definitely in the UK, obviously you can't meet up, but maybe take a walk. It might be a bit noisy, but if you go to the park and, you know, wear headphones and you have your meeting and just take a walk, because I think that helps put you on an even playing field. You can breathe and talk and be calm when you're, you know, discussing these goals.
It's lovely. Thank you, Chi-Chi.
Yeah, I think like for me as a mentee, I think it was important for me to do a lot of reflection after sessions, before sessions, and to keep a written journal, and also just to you know, keep that consistency of like what happened last session, what did we talk about, so that we can talk about it for this next session. And again, what Chi-Chi said about like you give what you get. And so like the more I worked on things, the more I could like learn and ask better questions almost with Anais. And another thing too is I think it's important to get to know each other as well, and to like learn each other's strengths, so that you can ask those questions as well. And another thing too is I think I also learned this too from just like you know, relationships, and like knowing the intention of the relationship with mentee and mentor is like, I was also careful to not like turn sessions into like counseling sessions. Like I didn't want to be like, I didn't want to take Anais's like energy around that. And so I think it's important too that mentees know boundaries around like, what can you talk about, or what is appropriate to talk about within this relationship, especially as artists in the industry. And so those are my main things.
And do you think it's helpful to like set boundaries between the two of you in advance, or do you think they naturally come up?
I think I'm just like, I'm aware of myself as well. And so like, so I'm like, okay, I've got stuff to work on, you know, like, so I think, yeah, again, like self-knowledge, self-awareness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you guys have given amazing tips. I don't know, I don't have such a good one, but I think consistency is good. Trying to put in just some regular time, even if it's not an hour, but just to build that bond, because there are things that you can't rush. You know, you can't build a bond. It just takes time to get to know someone. And I think even the reliability of knowing, okay, at this time, this date, or I know I can count on this, just puts more like force and strength in that relationship, and it builds trust. And that helps. I think, trust, I think, is a big one as well, you know, because in order for us to move forward with these very precious moments in our lives, or like aspects of our lives, you know, we have to be able to be transparent and to be open. And you can't do that with someone that you feel is unreliable, or maybe isn't like present with you in some way, shape, or form. You know, I think knowing that it's a priority and that it's meaningful on both ends is really important. You know, that I feel like this was as valuable for me as it might have been for Kim, you know?
Yeah.
And that we respect each other's time. And when we're together, we're present, we're transparent, and we're putting in as Chi said, like putting in as much as you want to get out of it, you know?
Definitely. So trust, boundaries, consistency, put in as much as you've got, go for a walk.
Yeah.
Know yourself. I also just want to give a tip that, you know, we do so many panels like this, or I just also talk to people a lot about mentorship, and it always comes up when you say to someone like, do you have a mentor? Have you had a mentor before? And people say, not formally, but I asked, you know, so and so. And I think that's so important, and I just really want to encourage people to do that, which is, you know, if you see someone like you admire, ask them if you can. I mean, it doesn't even need to be so like, you know, formal and sitting down, does it? But just asking if you can ask advice. And I think people do love giving advice. So just going for it in that way. And I guess now's a good time for people to connect virtually. And actually, the first question we've got on the forum is related to that for you two. Was it a challenge to relate to and be paired with someone who's working in a different country?
It didn't bother me, you know. I feel like when you're open, at least for me, I felt that in a way, you know, when you were saying that you're working with someone who's in Mexico and it's like you don't know the music scene there. I think there are certain truths that are universal, you know, and like, and then the fact that they're in a different country, it's a different culture, all that is actually quite good because it kind of removes you from assumptions. You know, sometimes when you're working with something that you think you know, you're maybe too likely to fall into like, you know, just, I don't know, assuming things. Yeah. So I felt like the hardest thing was that the scheduling the time, but that was barely a hurdle, you know?
Yeah. I feel like I actually like the fact that Anais is in and like I guess like it's good to have another eye outside of the Canadian music industry because there is those universal like commonalities of how to deal with, well, the music industry is global, right? And like we're all artists dealing with that, the powers out there. So I appreciated it. If I had the choice, I think I would also choose like someone outside of the Canadian music industry.
That's really insightful. Okay, that's good to know. And I guess a benefit of this time, which is what we wanted this panel to be about. Question for Chi. What are some tips for first-time mentors, would you say?
I think the main tip for a first-time mentor would be reflect back on your journey as a mentee, and really think about, as the guys have said, just really think about how, you know, you benefited, what were the key things, what you would change, and try to apply that into your relationship. I would also say, like, don't be afraid to kind of do a bit of research into how to be a mentor, because there are some, you know, there's tools out there through Keychange, through she.grows as well, that, you know, handbooks. There's a lot of guidance there too. So I would definitely do that. But I'm still learning myself.
Well, I mean, I guess that's the important thing, is that everybody always does, don't they? But I would definitely say read the handbook, because sometimes people don't. And then there was a question here about, is mentorship always offered voluntarily? And I think that is absolutely crucial that it is. I think there are schemes where you can be paid to do it, and there's always that thing, but I think it's got to have that willingness to sort of enter into it, hasn't it? And again, it's about, you know, if you're protecting your own time and your own knowledge and your own experience, I'd say that's pretty important.
I agree, but I also think if you work in an organisation that is offering the scheme, and, you know, there's someone more senior to you who ordinarily they wouldn't offer their time, I would take that opportunity too. I'm not saying they're going to be doing it like with their hands tied, but obviously they're going to have to make time for it. So definitely exploit the facilities that are offered to you.
Definitely. Well, and that's happening more and more, isn't it? Which is so positive.
Yeah.
So I think that's all the questions we've got time for. I just wanted to ask Anais and Keychange if there's ever going to be a creative collaboration between you two.
Ooh. I would be so down. I'm a huge fan of Anais. I love her music. Oh my God, go listen to Anais's music. Holy.
No, I would be so down too. It's going to happen. Just have to get over to Vancouver real quick.
Oh my God.
Or maybe not.
It's beautiful here.
I do love Vancouver.
Yay!
And I love you. You're amazing. Thank you for sharing
love you
this time with
too.
me. Seriously.
You're amazing.
Yes, you're great.
Oh, we're so privileged to be part of this loving. So thank you so much. And thank you to Chi again for all your knowledge and for the training earlier in the program. Thank you to Keychange for everything you do. Thank you to shesaid.so for everything you do. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. And thanks, Anais, Kimoto, and Chi.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
So
Harriet.
nice to see everybody. Take care. Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye.